and welcome to the Yapfest podcast. My name is Lewis.
And I got a rock.
And today we're talking about Halloween because it doesn't, technically it's October 30th when this comes out, but it's Halloween. So we're talking about Halloween shit, ghost stories, Halloween history, because that's the kind of things that Benjamin likes. Benjamin, do you believe in ghosts?
I 100% believe in ghosts.
As do I. And we'll get into... I have so many ghost stories and more sinister stories.
Are they popular stories or personal stories?
Personal stories.
Great.
But then I also have the more sinister ones are I've only had a couple encounters, but they're still pretty terrifying. I don't want to say the name of them before I have to because they're more likely to get you if you say the name. But do you know what I'm talking about? It starts with an S.
I do. Yeah. Oh, I do.
Yeah. Pretty. Honestly, so terrifying.
Genuinely would run the other direction no matter
genuinely would run the other direction.
So, the idea of Halloween is, surprise, surprise, a bunch of stolen traditions that were popularized in the Christian church and then commercialized for large corporations to make money off of. But how did we start? We start with a Celtic tradition called Samhain, spelled Samhain. This is basically their new year. And it happens on November 1st. Why November 1st? This was predicted to be when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. And if that sounds familiar, we'll get into that just a bit. This was the day that marked the end of summer, the start of the harvest, dark, cold winter, a time of year that's often associated with death. The Celts believed that on the night before the new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, when it was believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to the earth. Now we get into the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns and costumes. Now, to help ward off these spirits that would come through when the veil was at its thinnest, they would light these big bonfires, and they would dress up in costumes and masks and garb to deter the ghosts from ruining their crops, causing mischief and whatnot. And then, after the big celebration, they would bring some of the fire back with them on a torch to light their hearths at home. Basically, to help keep them warm through the night, but it being connected to that special fire that they lit to protect themselves. Then comes in Rome and the Catholics.
Classic.
They basically invade the area of this is Ireland and the UK and a little bit of France that the Celts lived in. And they start turning everything to Christianity and veiling the local traditions through Christianity to appear look, we're not so different now. Pope Gregory III named the day of November 1st All Saints' Day.
Catholic holiday. I've observed it before.
Yes. And then the following day, All Souls' Day. Now, this was also an addition of a combination of some Roman holidays. The first one being Feralia, which is a day in late October where the Romans traditionally commemorated the passing of the dead. So once again, at this point of year, we're recognizing the dead. And then the second holiday they introduced was a day to honor Pomona, who is the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. And her symbol is the apple, which is why we which is why we have the tradition of candy apples, bobbing for apples.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I know.
It's
I
all
only know.
symbols.
I only know like the pagan lore.
Pagan, Celtic. They're all kind of viewed
Yeah.
as the same
Yeah.
right now. So those are the two Roman holidays that came into play. Then Pope Gregory III was like, no. We got to continue to promote Christianity, changed it to All Saints' Day, but it was then called All Hallowmas, which is the Middle English meaning for All Saints' Day,
Oh.
which is where we get the term All Hallows Eve.
Oh. It's all clicking.
Which has now been rebranded as Halloween. And so that's the origin of how celebrating a holiday that talks about the dead and spirits and the paranormal came to be. It's multiple cultures in one, but there's some other influences that helped create the Halloween we know today. The colonists that came to the Americas was who brought these traditions along with them. Obviously, the notion of still like having a party where you dress up together was all it really was, but there was also a tradition to go to door and ask for food and money. Because this is the harvest, if people had leftover food to spare or money to buy food, they would share as a community. And then the World Wars happened. Huge jump in time.
I was gonna say.
We enter in the baby boomer generation and the generation previous. In the early 20th century, World War I happens. At this point, suburbs are becoming a lot more popular. And it became sort of a tradition to cause mischief during
Classic.
Halloween, which ended up starting off as harmless pranks, which then turned into vandalism and crime, like destroying property, reckless driving. Like, it was all kind of sorts of chaotic. Then the war happens. There came a sugar ban. What they really were trying to do was to put all their resources into the war. When we came back from the war, the economy boosted, as it does. And for the first time, the sugar ban was lifted. And so there was all of this excess sugar, which was then turned into candy, as a way to give to the neighborhood kids in hopes that they would behave. Which is why it is called trick or treat, because it was an incentive not to pull these pranks or do these crimes.
This is crazy. I never knew most of this.
And obviously, each community starts to have like their own traditions. The idea of like a costume party became really popular. But they were tended to be more private events. It wasn't until the World Wars that it became like a full community event and became popularized throughout the U.S. and now other places of the world.
Well, did you know that in St. Louis they have this thing where you have to tell a joke to get your candy?
Do you really?
Well, I mean, some people don't do it, but like it is a thing here. So like sometimes if you go to a door and you're like, trick or treat, and they're like, you gotta tell me a joke first. You gotta tell a joke to get your candy. So my joke always was, what did the fish say when he ran into a wall?
What?
Damn. And my mom taught me that joke, and it always got a laugh because I was like 8 and I said damn, but also it was like a damn.
That's
you know what I mean?
Great. Yes, that's great. That's really the large scheme of things of the idea and the notion of Halloween. And it's obviously, it's still not the only culture that celebrates this time of year with the dead. Like, we still have people who follow pagan traditions. In the Hispanic culture, it's Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, which is November 2nd. November 1st to them, I'm pretty sure, is to celebrate the children.
I think you're correct.
But once again, it's that same time period.
Yeah.
That the world has just collectively agreed that this is when we celebrate the dead and where the veil's the thinnest. I don't know. I find it really cool.
Unfortunately, I feel like in some ways Halloween is dying out, which I hate. Like, because yeah, well, because I was saying, like, I don't really have anywhere to go on Halloween this year because I'm going to a party, like, the week before. And so I don't really have anything to do on Halloween. And I was like, well, I'll just sit outside and, like, be in costume and, like, hand out candy and stuff. And my mom was like, we don't really get that many trick-or-treaters anymore. And I was like, that's actually bullshit. Like, what are they doing? What are these kids doing with their lives? They'll never know the pain of having the cutest costume on earth, and then your mom makes you wear a coat under it.
Yep. Or when it's real cold, over it.
Oh, yeah. Well, one time my mom, hang on, I have a picture, actually, of me wearing a coat under my Halloween costume. I'm like a mermaid, and I literally had to wear a coat under it. Pissed me the fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the mermaid. Future me, zoom in on this. I'm the mermaid, and I have a coat on under my costume. At least my coat was pink, and it matched my costume. Otherwise, one of my favorite holidays growing up was always Halloween. And, like, pretty much still is, even though I'm an adult. Halloween is just kind of like gay people Christmas anyway. Also, it's crazy to think about how Halloween wasn't always a thing.
Yeah.
Like, that boggles my mind.
And Halloween is also the reason why we view witches the way we do.
All that. And also, like, so at the Salem witch trials, they didn't burn witches. Like, nobody burned.
No.
Nobody
no one
burned.
in Salem.
No one in Salem. They just tried to prosecute women because they hated women.
Mm-hmm.
Something funny about, like, the lore of witches. So, witches are depicted riding on brooms, such as above my head right here for people watching this right now. Witches are depicted on brooms because they used to, not, like, specifically witches, I don't think. I don't remember where I got this information, actually, so this could not be true. They used to rub, like, some sort of hallucinogenic herb concoction or something on the broomstick and then, like, sit on vagina to the broomstick and that, like, got them high. I don't remember where I got this information, okay? I really don't remember. Allegedly, that's why witches are depicted on broomsticks.
The broom has been depicted as a symbol of female domesticity. Quoted from Patti LuPone in Agatha All Along a couple episodes ago. Which, at the time of recording this, we are a week before this episode is dropped. Tonight's episode is Patty's trial, and I couldn't be more excited. They all dress up as classic witches from media. She's Glinda.
She's Glinda?
She's Glinda. Agatha is the Wicked Witch of the West, or Elphaba. Jen, their potions witch, is dressed up as the evil queen disguised as the old lady in Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
I didn't know she was considered a witch.
And yes. And Joe Locke, spoilers ahead, if you have not watched Agatha, don't listen to what I'm about to say, who has now been revealed to be Billy Kaplan, aka Wiccan, is dressed up as Maleficent.
I love how literally almost every single episode we've recorded, we've talked about Agatha all along in some capacity.
Because it is my largest obsession at the moment, which is why I'm a witch.
Well, you know witchcraft works because of that one time that we can't talk about.
Let's just say I tried witchcraft once and it worked all too well.
Yeah,
Well.
It was my fault.
I have been wanting to get back into it.
There are a lot of people who practice like Judaism alongside witchcraft. They kind of blend. It's actually really, really cool. The only thing is like there are certain closed practices, like there are practices or like rituals from closed practices that obviously if you're not part of, you know what I like, you can't.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Let's get into the spooky.
I'm a little afraid because I was thinking about, I have so many stories and I was thinking about them like before the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly scared myself a little bit because I shoved them back in the back of my mind so that I can sleep at night.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start from the very beginning. Dropping some lore about myself. So, back in 2008, when my parents were still married, we lost our house because of the recession. My dad got laid off and we lost our house. So, we moved in with my grandparents, my dad's parents. And my dad has lived there ever since because when he grew up there, there's always been like plenty of like basically they used to have this pool, like a pool house, and he just converted it into like his house. You know what I mean? It had a bathroom. He built like a full kitchenette and like a loft bed situation.
Yeah.
So like fully functional for like him to live in and as kids for us to live in. And obviously the main house is right there in case if we ever needed anything. Like the main house was always right there. When we moved in while my parents were still together, my bedroom was in the main house. In like older people, so like our TV room and our living room were like two separate things.
Yep.
So my bedroom was in the living room at that time. Somewhere down the line, I can't really remember why, but I moved out of the living room and like instead of I can't even remember where my brother slept, to be so honest with you. Because it's a 2-bedroom house, and my grandparents had 1 bedroom. Oh, I remember. My parents slept in the other bedroom, and that's why I was in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my parents separated, we ended up getting like bunk beds over in the pool house. I don't really remember why, to be honest. So we ended up sleeping over there most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, I think it was like, I was in like 7th grade. So I was like 12. And like, if you know, 12 is a hard age. Middle school is hard. You're starting to go through puberty. And so I decided that I wanted the bedroom that my parents used to sleep in the main house, which was my dad's bedroom when he was little.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my dad and I asked my grandparents if that could be my room because I needed my own space and I just could not. And like I at the time I don't think that I had my own room where my mom was living. So I asked my grandparents and I asked my dad, like, can that please be my room? Like, and they were like, yes, but we're taking the lock off the door. Something about my dad's house is that it's not technically in the middle of nowhere, but it is in a very rural location, like at the top of a hill, and there's not really anybody around. You could get, like, my friend lived through the woods from me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you took, like, a 5 or 10 minute walk through the woods, you would eventually reach her house, like, just straight through.
Yeah.
But, like, it's secluded, and it is surrounded by woods, which at night is already pretty freaky. That room that I moved into, the window faced, like, we have, like, a back road that goes up to, like, the barn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that window faces that back road, and it's the side of the woods where it's deep and vast. It's not the side where you can walk to my friend's house. It's deep and vast, and it goes up to, like, our well and our barn. I didn't realize that would be freaky when I moved into it. I'll get into a little bit more about, like, the stories about the window in a little while. I would say probably like 85% of my ghost stories take place in this room, in this house. Something about this house is that my grandpa literally built this house. We own like 5 acres of land or something. And so, like, it doesn't really have, like, a history. You know what I'm saying? But there is a nearby cemetery that is, like, close enough where I could see spirits wandering up to our house. And plus, as a child, the house that we ended up having to move out of, I wouldn't say that I was having experiences, but I was definitely picking up on energies, I guess you could say. So I start sleeping in that room, and at that time in my life, I don't know why, but I liked to sleep with the door open. I guess it made me feel safer at the time because I would go to bed and then, like, and the hallway light would still be on, and then my grandparents would go to bed, like, after me, and so it made me feel safer, I think. I'm pretty sure this is one of the very first things that happened to me. It's not super freaky, but it was to me. Mm-hmm. So I go to bed one night, and my door is open, and, like, I'm trying to sleep, and obviously the hallway light, it's pretty bright, and my door is open pretty wide. I would say probably like this much. Mm-hmm. So probably about like a foot. I go to kind of like roll over, and as I'm rolling over out of the corner, I see like a shadow, and I think, okay, like, it's just my grandpa going to bed. The kicker here was that after I had finished rolling over, I realized that I didn't hear his footsteps. At the time in that hallway, we had carpet, so I could hear him kind of like shuffling down the hallway, you know. Obviously, he was like, I don't know how old he was, but an older man, you know.
Grandpa age.
Grandpa age. And so, and he wore like those shoes, you know, the Velcro ones, and like the brown
Yep.
Yeah, you know the
Yep.
shoes. And I realized that I could hear him shuffle down the whole hallway when he walked down the hallway to go to bed. And I realized that I hadn't heard him shuffle down the hallway. And that was scary. And then I realized it wasn't I'm getting goosebumps right now. It was not shaped like a him at all. It was really tall and like thin. My grandpa was like maybe like 5'11" or something, and he was like an average build. He wasn't super thin. And so that kind of freaked me out. So I'm like paralyzed with fear at this point, like, because I'm rolled in the opposite direction of the door, so my back is kind of to the door. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And so I was like, okay, well, my grandma's probably still up.
Yeah.
So I take a deep breath, I roll over, turn on my light really fast, and I get up and I go to the TV room, and I'm like, Grandma, I'm scared. And she's like, honey, it's fine. Just go back to sleep. And so I went back to sleep. And that was like one of the first occurrences. That was one of the first occurrences that happened to me. And it only got worse from there. So that shadow thing happened frequently at that house, and honestly, it still happens to me sometimes. Like, not
Is that still your room?
Yeah.
Mm.
Still my room. And you're probably wondering, like, why didn't you switch rooms? There are no more rooms that I could switch to. Like, my brother moved into the living room. That was the room I lived in before.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously my grandparents' room. My dad lives in it now because, my grandpa passed away, but my grandma doesn't live at our house anymore. She lives in assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't live in that room anymore. But either way, no more rooms to move to. And I still live in that room, and that's why it's kind of freaky. But stuff like that kind of continued to happen, where out of the corner of my eye I would just catch shadows, you know?
Totally, absolutely.
So fast forward, I don't know exactly when this was, but it's definitely one of the scariest things that I've ever had happen to me, and the only time that I've ever been touched.
Oh.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing is that I've never seen anything other than the shadows out of the corner. Like, I've never just, like, full-on seen an apparition or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I see stuff, it's always out of the corners of my eyes. It's never, like, full-on. I feel things. It's not always, like, a touch. But, like, this time, it was, like, a touch, which is very terrifying. So fast forward, and I don't know why, but I remember this night, I was particularly, like, scared to go to bed. I don't know why. Maybe the vibes were just kind of, like, off. Maybe I was having a rough time. I don't know. I tried to go to bed. And, again, I left my door open, like, probably, like, a foot. I did it every night because I was so scared. I don't know why I didn't just close the door if I didn't want to see the shadows and stuff. But, like, it would have been more scary to be in the total darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to bed, and I can't sleep. I feel so on edge. I feel so scared. I just, like, particularly that night, it was just, like, the vibes were so off. I don't know how else to explain it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get up, and I'm gonna get my grandma, and I'm gonna ask her to, like, stay with me until I fall asleep. Because I just, like, I couldn't handle it. Which is, like, for me, that's a big ask, because I don't like to ask for help. Even at a young age, didn't want to ask for help. So I get up, and I'm like, Grandma, can you come lay with me, like, while I fall asleep, and then, you know, you can get up and after I fall asleep and go back to your room or whatever. Like, I just, like, I need you to be with me until I fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, okay, I will. I'm on the left side of the bed, and she's on the right side of the bed, and the left side of the bed is closest to the door. For reference, I don't know. I don't feel like explaining the layout of the room. I will say that, like, the end of the bed is oriented toward the door. And so she comes and lays down with me, and I feel safer. And so I'm trying to go to sleep. Probably, like, maybe 15, 20 minutes go by. And then I kind of feel, like, a touch on my, like, the back of my leg, like, above your knee pit, slightly above, like, the pit of my knee.
Yeah.
And, like, it's very much, it feels like a hand, and it feels like it kind of, at first it like just kind of set itself down, and then, like, it pressed a little bit, and then it just kind of held there for a second.
No me gusta.
And I froze. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And like for a second I thought it was my grandma. First of all, that's a weird place for her to touch.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, she was oriented away from me. Like she was not facing me whatsoever. Plus she's like really short, so honestly she probably couldn't even reach me or like reach my leg like that. And also, I don't know, just like it could not have been her, right? And in my head I know that it cannot be her touching me right now. And so finally I jerk my leg and like it stops. I'm like pretending, you know, where you do the thing where you pretend to be asleep because you're so scared. I kind of was pretending to be asleep, but I jerked my leg like I would in my sleep, and then it stopped. I don't even know I don't know how I went to sleep after that. I really don't. It only got worse. I would hear like whispers, and I would just like all of the sudden feel doom and dread. Stuff like that happened to me in that room until my grandpa passed away. And after my grandpa passed away, it stopped happening.
That's crazy. I have a not so scary ghost story.
Okay.
After my parents got divorced, we were living with my grandfather for a while, until my dad reconnected with an ex-partner of his who also happened to be divorced, and they got together, got married, and my stepmom has 2 children from that previous marriage. Once their relationship was pretty long term, we moved in as well. Now, this was a 3-bedroom house for now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of us.
Been there,
which is a lot of people. And so, after my stepsister went away to college, my sister moved into the now empty bedroom. My brother and I slept on pull-out couches in the living room. My sister is known to sleepwalk and just like general insomnia and having a hard time falling asleep. So one night, my pull-out couch / bed was closest to the stairs. The stairs face a wall, the entire depth of the house. My brother's couch would be there. Mine was on sort of like a middle wall that was like basically there to just cut off the living room from the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Like a half wall.
In the dining room. Yeah, it's like the wall kind of just wraps around this one section.
Yeah.
For the kitchen. But it's not like it doesn't meet any other wall. It's like its own standalone thing in the middle of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And my couch was on that wall. And my back is turned to the stairs.
Is this the house that they live in now or a different house?
Yes. Same house.
No, I've been there. Okay.
It's where the piano currently is.
Okay.
And I hear someone who sounds like my sister walk down the stairs, which isn't an issue, because my sister's probably getting water or something, whatever. And then she walks back up. Then it happens again, and I'm like, okay, what does she need now? Once again, up and down, up and down. I finally turn around. I roll over to see what she's up to, and I see a little girl in a white dress with braided pigtails running up the stairs. And at this point, it's like 2, 3 a.m. Like, it's not just like, there's no way I'm dreaming. I'm awake now. And I'm like, okay.
There are tears in my eyes, and I got full body chills.
Just wait. This happens on and off again for quite a while. I slept on that pull-out couch for 2 years. And I had multiple times seeing her.
Did she, see you, or was it, her back?
She just existed like I wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
But it was always, I only ever saw her on the stairs. Flash forward to 4 years ago. I am sitting outside with my entire family, and our dinner conversations are always very interesting. We always learn something about someone. And the paranormal is brought up. Now, me and my father have always been very aware. And so we're sharing experiences and stories, and I talk about this, about how I used to see a little girl on the stairs. And my stepmom goes, describe her. And I said, a little girl in a white dress with braided pigtails. Not only have I seen her, not only has my father seen her, but so has my stepmother and stepsister.
I slept in your house and you didn't tell me this?
She doesn't faze anybody. She doesn't interact with anybody. She's in her own little world. What was a real nail in the coffin? My stepmom goes, where did you see her? And I said, on the stairs. And she goes, she hangs out on the loft.
That's so terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel scared at all?
No,
there was. Feel scared?
There was never a threatening presence about her. It's innocent. She's a child.
That's really interesting because I feel like I've never had an experience where I feel not threatened. All of mine have been scary.
No, I've never felt anything sinister. And I obviously haven't slept there in a very long time. I moved into the basement, and now my brother lives down there because I'm not there very often.
But it's probably good that you didn't feel scared, because they say that sometimes demons manifest as children. If you felt scared, I would be worried.
Yeah, no. She was just playing.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you didn't feel scared, then that's good. I actually have, a lot of stuff that happens to me, nowadays happens in, dreams and stuff. And I had a dream one time when I was in high school that, I saw, a little girl at the end of my bed. And I thought it was real in the moment, and then I realized I was dreaming, and I was trying to wake myself up, and I couldn't wake myself. I was stuck. And I couldn't wake myself up. Because I was still fully asleep. I just had realized that I was dreaming. And so I was trying to wake myself up, and then I woke myself up, but I was in sleep paralysis. And then, I try to keep every time I have sleep paralysis, I don't open my eyes. I would recommend that nobody open their eyes when they have sleep paralysis. And so I'm the way I try to wake myself up every time I have sleep paralysis is to thrash and scream in my brain. So I'm thrashing and screaming in my brain, and then I hear a cackle in my ear, and then I woke up. Or not woke up, but I can't, I was able to move. Mm-hmm. That was fucking terrifying. And then I ran up the stairs and I slept on the couch.
I have a sleep paralysis story. So, in my childhood home, we don't live there anymore, but in my childhood home, my bedroom was in the corner of the house, but it was also in front of my door. On the ceiling was the entrance to the attic. And growing up, I always heard noises in the attic. It's oh yeah, it's probably just an animal or something. I would beg to differ. That's scary. And as a child, I sort of rationalized it, and I was oh, it's just the man in the attic.
How is that rationalizing it?
Well, because him and I were chill. Nothing ever happened. I just would hear him. ever saw him.
So are you saying that you sensed that there was like a male entity in the attic?
I don't know if I would like sensed it, but like that's just like what rationally the sounds were to me. I was like, oh, it sounds like someone lives up there. Cool. As a child, a lot of things wouldn't get through my thick skull.
Well,
like I would just like be okay with things I shouldn't have been okay with. For a while, you know, growing up in a house with 3 young kids, things went missing all of the time. And the common answer was probably, oh, one of my siblings stole something, and they're just not saying anything, which is probably the case for most of it. But one year, for Halloween, I dressed up as the Grim Reaper. And I had like full like black robes with maroon accents, and I had like a medallion around my neck. I loved that costume. And every Halloween, it would be weeks that I would wear these costumes for after the fact. I just like as soon as I'm home in a costume.
Me.
It was just fun.
Mm-hmm.
I had a pirate costume one year. It took like months to get that bitch off me. One day I'm looking for this Grim Reaper costume and I just cannot find it. Cannot find it, whatever. And so I go to bed and I wake up and I'm in sleep paralysis. And I'm looking at the foot of my bed.
Oh, why is it always the foot of the bed?
A dark figure with red glowing eyes just standing.
Was
not
it the Hat
moving.
Man? Was it the Hat Man?
It was not the Hat Man.
Okay.
Just standing there. And I'm talking like not even a human figure. Like it was like
yeah. Oh
just
no,
a
I
shape.
I know. Yeah.
Just a shape. And it's just standing there. Really, really skinny and tall, just standing there looking at me. As I feel myself like starting to wake up, like I'm starting to move, the figure drops. Like just collapses.
Oh.
And I fall back asleep.
How did you go back to sleep?
Just wait. I wake up in the morning, and in front of my bed was my dresser, and I just put like the clothes I'd wear the next morning on my dresser. I went to go put my clothes on by the foot of my bed, the Grim Reaper costume.
It was wearing that costume.
I don't know if it was wearing it, but it definitely had it because it just appeared.
The sentence, it had your like, what the fuck? That's so freaky.
And then after that, I no longer heard things in the attic.
That's
peaceful slumber for me.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Why did it just stop?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
I don't know what it was.
I hate it. I hate it so bad.
I still have that costume. It still fits.
Honestly, at this point, all my sleep paralysis stories blend together, but it's always the most terrifying thing. And like, I always just like, I think the worst ones are where it feels like you can't breathe. To be honest, I trained myself not to sleep on my back because I found that sleeping on my back, I always get sleep paralysis sleeping on my back.
Yep.
I very rarely get it sleeping on my stomach or on my side. And if I start to go into sleep paralysis, I can get myself out of it. If I'm on my back, I can't get myself out of it.
You're locked in, baby. Enjoy the ride. You won't.
Yeah, it's fucking terrifying. I think my favorite costume growing up, I was a spy. It sounds so lame. I was a spy and I had like a black wig and like I had these like these leather boots that were like hand me down from like my dad's friend's daughter or something, and I loved those boots to death. And I got to wear like black eye makeup in all black and like a fedora and like sunglasses, and like we went out to trick or treat, and I don't know, I was really into the character.
Well, I have a favorite costume that one of my siblings have worn. Well, my father was really into a show called Dog the Bounty Hunter. Insert photo of Dog the Bounty Hunter here. My sister one year decided to go as Dog the Bounty Hunter. And she looked just like him. She looked just like him. I think one of my most iconic moments was when I went as a black sort of outfit demon-esque creature to high school. In my conservative high school junior year, I decided it was in my best decisions, my best efforts to walk into my school full fucking glam, stiletto heels, like dressed in all black with prosthetic horns coming out of my face.
I also was Red Riding Hood one year, and my aunt made my red cloak, and I still have the red cloak, and I wear it around the house. It's short on me now, obviously, but I have it, and I wear it around the house, and it's red and sparkly. I made this little capelet that I'm wearing. It's like you can't really see it, but it's like bat wings, little capelet thing.
When you're growing up, were morph suits a big thing at your school?
Oh yeah.
So one year, my sister was really trying to make it in with all the popular girls, and everybody like decided that they were just going to wear morph suits. And so we went to like 5 different like party cities to find a morph suit. And so she got a red morph suit. The following year, I was always smaller than the rest of my siblings. And because it was red, I don't know if your school did this, but in my district, we always had at the beginning of October something called Red Ribbon Week.
Oh, we had that. We had that, I think.
And one of the days, we were supposed to wear as much red as possible to go on a fun run. Basically just like run around the school. And so this is me in the red morph suit. And fun fact, I am wearing shorts in here, but a guy who was trying to flirt with me at the time did pull them down. Which means my butt just said morph suit on it. But like, we weren't allowed to have our butts say morph suit.
When I was in high school, I wasn't involved in the production, but they did Urinetown, and the props master, she had to go on stage to make something work, like in the middle of the show, and she put on a black morph suit and like went to do it, and after that, I don't know why, but they were like, you can't do that. They made it a point after that, like in the years following, to be like, you can't wear a black morph suit for your stage black.
So this is costume related and theater related, not Halloween related, but this is me in a production of Hansel and Gretel as a troll.
So I'm making my Halloween costume this year, and I got a new sewing machine, and literally to make this little capelet that I'm wearing, and I ended up making a lot more than that. I made a whole dress, and I'm making a whole witch hat. It was a new machine. It's like one of those newfangled ones that has like a screen. So I didn't know really how to use it, and it didn't come with a manual, and I was like, you know what? A lot of it is just like the only thing that I had to look up was how to backstitch, and then I thought I had it figured out. I'm having all sorts of trouble with it. The tension isn't right. The bobbin, for some reason, I can't get the bobbin to catch, and I'm just having all sorts of problems with the machine, and then I rethread the bobbin for the 1,000,004th time or whatever. I finally get the bobbin to catch. And so you may or may not know, like, when you catch the bobbin with the needle, it like comes up and then you have to like move it out of the way before you start sewing. I know you're not really supposed to do this, but I've been sewing since middle school. I've always used my finger to move that out of the way, like under the presser foot. So I go to move it, and the needle just comes right down through my finger. Absolutely through my finger. I literally had to use the knob to take the needle up and get it out of my finger. Yeah. I didn't even cry. Like, I just got it out of my finger. I went to go wash it and stuff, and then I had to get a tetanus shot. At the beginning of the episode, I said I would go back to things that happened with my bedroom window. Okay? If you haven't picked up on it by now, I'm referring to skinwalkers. They are Navajo malevolent witches that take the form of animals. So they kill the animal, they take the skin, and then they transform into this creature. And yeah, They have a lot of. I'm not going to totally go into it. If you want to learn more about skinwalkers, I actually have a Navajo source. On YouTube, his name is Shanklin Shadow Productions. He has stories that are like directly from him, or like from the Navajo Nation. Actually, I learned some terrifying information today. Skinwalkers are believed to get their power from the Navajo land, I guess. Why is my light flickering right now? Can you see it flickering? Okay, I can see it flickering. That's really freaky. Anyway, they're believed to get their power from the Navajo land because they're Navajo beings. Where I live in the Midwest. There's not Navajo land around me, and skinwalkers they can go outside the Navajo land, but they can't come as far as where I am. So actually, technically, what I've had experiences with are not technically skinwalkers. They're another type of shapeshifter. Obviously, I haven't really looked into it that much because it's really terrifying. I honestly just assumed that they were skinwalkers up until today, when I learned that the skinwalkers are actually more central to the Navajo land. They are some other sort of shapeshifter that does I don't know if they do similar things, to be honest, because I've never seen one full out. I used to read the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book. I don't know if it's in the first one or the second one, but in the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book, there's a story about this, like, vampire zombie creature with glowing, like, yellow-green eyes that knocks and scratches on the window of this girl and attacks her. And eventually, they catch it and they burn it or something. I don't know. And that terrified me so badly. I would always be really freaked out when I heard like scratches or like knocks on my window. I don't actually know if it's normal to hear scratches or knocks on your window now that I think about it, but like at my mom's apartment where we lived after my parents separated, where she lived after my parents separated, on the window of that room, I would always hear like scratching, and that's because there was this big pine tree that one of the branches scratched against the window, and that's what I was hearing. That was like a real thing, and so I was very used to hearing the scratching. But so at my dad's house, there's nothing that would scratch on my window. There's not there's not a tree outside, and also it's lower to the ground, and so there's just nothing that would logistically scratch on my window. So I don't remember how old I was, but I was living in that room. I think I was a teenager at this point. So creepy stuff had already been fucking happening to me. And one night I hear like scratching on my window. And first of all, already terrifying for several reasons, and also because I had read that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book when I was younger, and so I'm still thinking, like, I'm still afraid of whatever that creature was in the book. And so I'm terrified, and I never investigated what the scratching was, but it happened more than once. Like, sometimes it just fucking happened in the night, and I was like, oh, that's scary. But to this day, I always make sure that the blinds in my room are closed before dark. Because if they're not closed, I am afraid that I'm going to see something, or even more terrifying, something is going to see me. One time, this is how I learned this lesson, okay? One night, I had like left my blinds open. I guess I don't know what I was doing. I was probably like outside or something. We were probably having like a bonfire or something outside, or I was just watching TV with my grandma in the TV room or something. And I decide that I'm gonna go back to my room, or like she goes to bed and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go to my room or whatever. And so I go back in there, and the blinds are open, and my light is like off. So like I can kind of see out the window just because it's like slightly brighter outside. I don't know why, but like it's completely dark outside, but it's just a little bit bright. Like, I don't know. I can see outside is my point. And so I walk in to go turn on the light. I see out the window the like glowing, oh my god, it's so scary. Glowing like yellow eyes. And have you ever seen a deer like at night?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like at first, and so I was like, oh, it's a deer. Like, it's fine. Then I realized there's no lights on. There's no light pointing at this deer, this quote-unquote deer. The only time the deer eyes glow like that is when you shine like a light on them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, wait, where's the light coming from that would make its eyes glow? Like, it's completely dark. And then they start to get closer. Like, very, very slowly get closer. And then I start to freak out. And so I shut the door to my room, I run back down the hallway, and I sleep in the living room. Or I sleep in the TV room. Thinking back on it, like, I left my blinds open before I left. Like, what if it had gotten in? Oh my god. Ooh, scary, scary. So fast forward a little bit, remember how I told you that my friend lived through the woods?
Yeah.
So one time, she sent me this video. And she called it, I'm gonna call it an SW. You know what. You know, she called it, the Navajo name for it. In the video, but it was just like a gray, tall, bald. It kind of looked like a mole if it was like a human, and like it had like claws. And she sent me a video of, and like I don't think that she would fake that in any way because she's also like really into this kind of stuff, or maybe she posted on her story or something. I don't know, but either way. Like, I saw it, and I was like, I know she doesn't live at that house anymore, but, because she's, like, grown, but I knew she lived on the other side of the woods from me, and so, if she's seeing one of those things, then I have to be careful. And here's the thing, it was in broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, I guess it was more like dusk, maybe. It was just out there. Like, what
that, my friend, is called a pale crawler.
How do you know? Did you look that up?
Look it up. Look it up. It's a cryptid in the Midwest. Skinny, gray, tall, bald, claws on their fingers.
Wait.
That's a crawler.
So it's actually something completely different from a shapeshifter, too.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's so terrifying. The final story, so I've always been super aware about these things, and like I kind of tried to educate myself about it early on because it's freaking terrifying. And I have like protection wards and stuff around my room there now. And this is where I want to say, if you're not of Native American descent, do not burn white sage. It's endangered, and they use that in their sacred practices.
Mm-hmm.
Burn, there's different types of sage, just don't burn white sage. But anyway, so now to my final story, which is recent, and that's why it's terrifying.
Ay, ay, ay.
So, a couple weeks ago, I was out at my dad's house. It was like the same weekend we went to the Viking festival that I was talking about in the last episode. We had gotten home from that, and then my blinds were open in my room, and like, for some reason, I just didn't go back in there until it had gotten dark outside, and I was like, oh, it'll be fine, because occasionally I will I'll leave them open, and then the first thing I do when I go in there is avoid eye contact with the outside when I'm looking at the window, and close the blinds immediately. Even before I turn on the light, I'll just close the blinds. I go back in there and I make my way to close the blinds before I even turn on the light. And I'm not even trying to look out the window. It's just, but like, I saw it without even trying because it was so prominent. So normally I see, like, if I had ever seen anything, it was like glowing yellow eyes, like a deer. This time, like, I saw glowing red eyes, which I have never seen before. I could not close the blinds fast enough. Is it a new creature? Like, that's what freaks me out, is that it's different from all the rest of them. What's lurking?
This is a whole
Pandora's
rabbit
box?
hole
Oh.
that you can fall down.
It truly
Look up-
is.
This goes to everybody listening. Look up the name of your state plus cryptids. And the things that will pop up, crazy.
Terrifying. And here's the thing, like, you know, like the normal cryptids that you always hear about, like Bigfoot and Mothman and stuff like that, and all the, but then, like, when it gets state specific, it's even more terrifying.
Yeah, like the hillside stepper, the gallywampus. I suggest doing it in the daytime. Don't even attempt at night, because you won't fall asleep. You will not fall asleep if you look at this at night. But some of them are just pathetic. Pile of fat that looks sad in the swamp. Like, some of their descriptions, like, wow, that's the saddest cryptid I've ever heard. He can't hurt a fly. He's just sad that he's lonely.
If you would like to know more about SWs and like that kind of thing, and learn more about the Navajo tradition, once again, Shanklin Shadow Productions on YouTube. I also got some information from the Ghosties podcast. It's Ghosties spelled like Ghost T-E-A-S. And they have a whole bunch of videos on all sorts of creatures, if you will. Oh, I'm not going to be able to sleep.
Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Yapfest. Leave a review, comment. How are you enjoying it so far? We hope you keep listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to see the video of this episode or future or previous episodes, go ahead to our YouTube channel, Yapfest, featuring Ben and Lola. If you want to keep up with our doings and other posts, check out our Instagram at yapfest.podcast. And if you want to watch silly little clips of previous episodes, hop on over to our TikTok, yapfest.podcast, for more.
Yeah, and good luck sleeping tonight.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. My name is Lewis, and my eyebrows are glued to the gods.